Hi Brittany, I really enjoyed listening to your discussion on this subject. First off, I loved both of the scriptures that you referenced in your discussion. I smiled big whenever you talked about Romans 12, 1 through 2, and how your mom loved to recite it to you, because that was one of my mom's favorite verses to talk about as well. And I am thankful that we are not of this world, and I love that understanding that I got to grow up with. However, I really want to discuss the other scripture that you quoted in your discussion, James 5, 13 through 15, which is also known as the prayer of faith. This is where we learn that the prayer of faith will save the sick. I assume that this means all sickness, whether it is of a mental or a physical nature. As I have aged, I've had to come to terms that God's healing and His overall will in this life is not always within the understanding of my tiny human brain. I've witnessed amazing, inexplicable miracles in this world, and I've even walked through fire and faith and received amazing answers to prayers myself. However, I've also seen prayers that seem to go unanswered this side of heaven. There is a biblical example of this in 2 Corinthians 12 when we learn about Paul's thorn in his flesh. We don't exactly know what the thorn is in his side, but it is clear that it is something that tortures him mentally. It's also something that he has asked God 3 times to remove. And the Lord replied to Paul, "My grace is enough for you. My power is made perfect in weakness." Paul decided that because of this, he would actually boast about his weaknesses. As a flawed human on a mission to help other flawed humans, I find this scripture immensely comforting. That said, it sometimes appears that our prayers are unanswered, but His grace is always enough. I also loved your passionate reiteration about how important it is that we destigmatize mental disorders. In one article I found on Key Ministry, written by Kristen Kanzowicz in 2019, she mentions that studies have shown repeatedly that among the most prolific barriers to mental health care, stigma is one of the largest. And while it's true that this exists in all communities, it's even more so within the Christian community. She says one of the best ways that we can combat stigma is by speaking about mental health publicly in an accepting light. This goes back to your point that stigma comes from a lack of understanding. I know many who have suffered needlessly by adding on shame to their illnesses because of stigmas. I pray that Christianity continues to open the door to science and knowledge, and as you beautifully mentioned, I pray that it normalizes mental health care. I pray that counseling and medication when needed will be combined with the power of prayer, all existing to offer the best treatment for those in need.